planning for business owners is, what's your exit strategy?
Yeah.
Like at the end of your business, I think it's important to look forward. A lot of times we can get stuck on, like, if we're thinking about our goals, like the short-term goals, because that's our day-to-day, that's, like what we're so focused on. But it's important to have those short, medium, and long-term goals, even within our business, and for our exit strategy of like, how are we going to get from here to here to exiting that business? Am I going to sell it? Who am I going to sell it to? Do I want it to go to employees? Do I want it to go to family? Am I just going to let it dissolve? Like, what is that plan? And then also, what's the plan if you become disabled, or, something happens to you, or you can't run the business the same way that you're running it now? Those are all considerations that business owners should be thinking of and having as part of their overall plan for their business. Because if not, tragedy strikes, something unexpected happens, and then they have to make those really difficult decisions during that time with the emotion and all these other different things going on, and it can just be crazy.
Have you ever had this experience where somebody is like, "Oh, I'm so glad we met. We'll have to talk more. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking about I'm going to sell my business in like 3 years, and I'm going to need some help at that point."
Yep.
And people say that to me sometimes, and the time frame's always a little different. It's, 2 years, it's 5 years, and I'm like, you don't need my help then. You need my help now.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because it's planning, right? And it's management, not managed and not planned.
Right. Well, and it's just like for people who are like, when they come and they say, all right, I'm going to retire next week. Like, what do I do?
Well,
it's the same kind of idea with the business.
So like I've seen where somebody sells their business and, they just didn't really put a lot of thought into it ahead of time. And so they said, okay, I put my business up for sale. They sold it and, they got a chunk of cash. And what it did was mess with their Social Security benefits. And we're not talking about like a ultra high net worth, sophisticated situation.
Yeah.
This made a major impact on them. And so they paid a lot more in taxes than they needed to. They didn't get as much on a Social Security benefit.
It can impact their Medicare as well.
And that's where it reared its head, right? Medicare ended up costing so much more. And so all of a sudden, it's like if they had come in and started working on that a couple of years ahead of time, it could have made a profound impact on navigating, by navigating those decisions a little bit differently, with a little bit more foresight and understanding what the plan was behind everything. You can really, really make a big difference.
Yeah.
So
I think that's a huge value add that we as advisors can provide to business owners, looking at their future of how can I do this? Because like you said, taxes, the income planning, like it all just keeps going back to those three
especially because those those last several years in their business usually are going to be their highest earning years with some of the most profitability, where if they do it right, they can really set up some great advantages for themselves on that exit. And if they do it wrong, they really can just basically nail their own foot to the floor and then shoot it. It can be pretty brutal when done wrong. Yeah. And that's oftentimes what they've worked their entire life for, that moment. Mm-hmm. And so that's what, one of the things I've had a friend in the industry say is, you can get a second chance at a lot of things. Mm-hmm. Really hard to get a second chance at retirement. So you really just kind of get one shot at it. You got to make it happen just right.
Yeah.
And that's why engaging with good professionals is so important, but also not just, not just engage and say, hey, I'm here, but to say, hey, I'm here. I want to, stay on top of this. I want to communicate. I want to make sure that I get you all the information and all the documentation you might need. And right. And I want to go through this process and make sure we have a well-calibrated plan. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, the scope of our work is always limited by the information that we have. Mm-hmm. So when somebody, comes late to the game and says, oh, I forgot to tell you last year, I put my business up for sale and I close on it this week. It's like, we can't go back and, we can't undo the planning we did. It's like too late in the game. You got to be ahead of that.
Yeah.
And,
especially because there's always other elements that are involved.
Right. But we're in this to see clients to and across the finish line. Mm-hmm. Right. And I think sometimes there's this mental block people have that they don't want to waste our time.
Yeah.
You know, so they want to they think we only want to see them when they have money in hand. Mm-hmm. Right. And that's not the case. We almost always want to see you significantly before that, because that's when the value of planning, that's when we can add the most significant value is ahead of time.